Far off in a land called Portland, Oregon, one brewery sought to create a beer that was the antithesis of New England IPAs, something wester than a West Coast IPA. And this is what Wayfinder came up with, a cold IPA. So what makes this beer so special, and how do you make it? Well, first, let's start by breaking this beer down. And then we'll talk about how I made my cold IPA. And then we'll come back afterwards and we'll compare my cold IPA to theirs. First off, nice yellow color. Notes of like mango and papaya and like a little bit of pine as well. Taste is pretty similar too. Comes off pretty dry, but not astringently so. There's just enough of a body in there to make sure that the dryness isn't off-putting. It is just a nice vessel to showcase the hops. It is very basic, not a whole lot of esters, not a big body to really cover anything else up. It is just a beer that puts the hops in the forefront and shows you everything that the hops can give. So keep all of that in mind, and let me show you how I took all of these flavors and translated them into how I made my beer. And don't worry, the recipe and the beer style guideline for the cold IPA is in the description below so that you can follow along. So let's start off with the malt. Wayfinder talks about using corn or rice in their cold IPAs, along with Pilsner to mimic an adjunct lager malt bill. Now, I personally am not a big fan of corn in these kinds of beers. I think it adds too much of a sweetness. So I went with 80% Pilsner malt and 20% flaked rice. The flaked rice adding just enough of a mouthfeel and body to the beer to stop the dryness from becoming astringent. So for the mash, I really wanted to mimic the dryness that I got in the cold IPA. So I went for 148 degrees Fahrenheit at about 5.2 to 5.4 pH, adding equal parts calcium chloride and calcium sulfate with a little bit of phosphoric acid just to bring the pH down. Then I let it rest for 20 minutes, vorlauf for 20 minutes, and send it over to my kettle to boil. Boiling for about 90 minutes to make sure I wasn't getting any DMS from that Pilsner malt. For hops, I did a 60-minute bittering edition of CTZ, a 30-minute edition of Citra, a 15-minute edition of Centennial, and finally a Flameout / Whirlpool edition of Centennial, Cascade, and Citra. Probably a bit more complicated than it needs to be, but oh well. Also, I'm going to let you in on a little trade secret. I added Dextrose to this beer because with 99% fermentable sugars, I knew it was going to really help dry it out. So once the boil was over, it was time to cool down my wort and transfer it to my fermentation vessel. So here's the important part. Kevin Davey, the head brewer at Wayfinder, talks about how he uses his house lager strain of yeast and ferments it at 65 to prevent sulfur. Now, he also then goes on to the Master Brewers podcast and gives us more information, saying that he actually cools down the wort to 50, then lets it free rise to 65, and lets it ferment the rest of the way at 65. I personally used West Coast Lager from Omega as my choice yeast. It had great fermentation characteristics, it fermented pretty well. The beer started at 14.4 Plato and ended up finishing at 1.4 Plato, which is actually pretty dry. Also, I dry hopped this beer right before fermentation was over, using Citra, Cascade, and Centennial, because I wanted to get a bit of biotransformation on those hops right before the beer was done fermenting. So this is how my beer turned out. Pretty good, straw yellow color. A little bit of chill haze on it. I couldn't really properly filter it, but a lot of that comes from the protein in the flaked rice that we talked about earlier. See how she tastes. Good amounts of citrus on it, and that's going to be from the Citra, the Centennial, the Cascade that I mentioned earlier. Like, a lot of this flavor is from the hops. There's nothing really else. It's nice and dry, but just like this one, it's not astringent. The body from the flaked rice comes out just enough to the point where you're not getting this like really cloying, green, leafy flavor from the hops, nor an astringency just from how dry it finished. There's no real lager character in this either, which is surprising considering that both of these use lager yeast. Same with this one. This one doesn't have a whole lot of esters in it. It really comes through as a very hop-forward beer with nothing else to contend with it. It is just hops, just flavor. It's great. So what do I think about cold IPAs in general? Is it the antithesis of New England IPAs? Is it Wester than a West Coast? I don't know if it's really the antithesis of New England IPAs. I think it's a good alternative. It really is just a dry beer that showcases hops instead of what hazy beers are, which they really just keep this really big body and then showcase the hops. So I can see it being the opposite in that way. Is it Wester than a West Coast? Somewhat, I think it does a good job of showcasing hops by itself. For the goal of this beer to be that you want to showcase hops in the entirety and have nothing contend with them, I think that they hit the nail on the head with these, honestly. Nice and dry, hop forward, no esters, no nothing. And that's why I kind of think that cold IPAs are skyrocketing right now. I mean, hell, dude, I drank the crap out of this at my brewery. And that's why I'm in love with cold IPAs, and also why I made this video. And if you did enjoy this video, go ahead and subscribe, and then go check out this video right here.